Welcome to the Underwater Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of underwater portrait photography, cinematography, and everything in between, with your host, Brett Stanley.
To the Underwater Podcast. And this week, I'm talking to freedive instructor and Florida Springs conservationist, David Cobiella. Dave's love of the springs is palpable, matched only by his dedication to the art of freediving. We chat about how he helps people learn to be more comfortable underwater and what he thinks are the major differences between freediving and scuba. He also talks about what needs to happen to protect the incredibly important resource of the Florida Springs. All right, let's dive in. Dave, welcome to the Underwater Podcast.
Hey, Brett.
How you doing, man?
I'm very, very excited to be here, and today is a beautiful day. Sun's shining outside.
Oh, it is? Because you're down in Florida, yeah, like Gainesville, right? So it's a nice, beautiful day.
We're coming off a cold spell, so all the plants are still wrapped up, but it is a bikeable day.
Oh, that is nice. I'm here in LA, and it is currently raining, which honestly I'm quite happy about.
Doesn't it kind of rain a lot over there?
And not a lot. It has in the last couple of months. We've had a bit of rain coming through. Yeah. What it does mean, though, is I am missing the water because it's cold and grey here, so I'm not getting into the ocean or even into really any water that is not artificially heated.
You would have laughed because speaking of water being artificially heated, my car was covered in ice a couple days ago, and I woke up in the morning and I went out to the spring, and we dove anyway. Because because the water's the same temperature all year, so we looked like crazy people.
But so you're getting into basically what feels like warm water, right? Like what temperature is it?
It's 72 degrees, but it varies depending on the ground temperature and the latitude. So North Florida Springs are a couple degrees colder than the Central Florida Springs where I dive, and then the Southern Springs can even be considered warm. So you start to see springs that are called like warm mineral springs and things like that. They're in the 80s, actually.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. Because I've been to the springs quite a bit over the last few years, and I do know that, it is kind of a colder temperature, especially in summer.
It's a mental thing, too. Because as you touch the water, if the air temperature is very hot, then the springs feel very cold. And then otherwise, it feels like you're jumping into a hot tub in the middle of the winter.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So it's kind of all year round kind of diving for you guys down there.
Yeah, we don't really have an on and off season, although a lot of freedivers down here tend to avoid the summer months, ironically, because that's when everybody else wants to get in the water. We like to dive in the cold when we get the whole place to ourselves, because that means the water is going to be undisturbed and crystal clear.
And so let's talk about that, like the facilities that are at these springs, because I know some of them are, kind of they have good facilities. They got showers and that sort of stuff. But are there springs that you're going to where there is nothing? Like you've got to bring in basically everything you need?
Some of my favorite springs, you actually had to bring all your gear on your back and hike through the woods to get to. And there'd be absolutely no facilities there, but it varies completely and widely. I guess the most common setup is probably just a porta potty and running water if you're lucky at some places. And then it ranges all the way to springs that have hot showers and stuff like that. So because there's so many springs, it helps. That's kind of where my job security comes in, because as a guide, I can find out what people need or, what their desires are. And then I can match them to the correct, spring.
Yeah. Well, so let's just take a step back, and because you know so much about the Florida Springs, that environment and that ecology and everything so well, but that's not where you grew up, is it?
No, not at all. Actually, I was a city boy. I grew up in Atlanta, and I went to school in Boston and then came down to Florida after that. So I didn't even start freediving until I was in my late 20s.
So how did that come about? Were you always into the water and just never had an opportunity, or was this something that was newfound for you?
Well, I usually credit my underwater journey's beginning to my mom and my dad. They were both scuba divers, and they wanted me and my brother to join them on trips. So when I was 12, I was lucky, very, very lucky enough to get scuba certified by my parents. And that's probably the biggest gift they ever gave me, as far as like changing the trajectory of my life.
Right.
So my brother connected with it too. He enjoyed diving, but I really became obsessed. And I probably did like 100 or 200 dives or so before I got into college.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I was very aquatic already. I just never made the connection to freediving until much later because no one told me it was a thing. This was before Facebook, before Instagram. It was harder to find people who believed in freediving.
Right.
I mean, I probably went to 30 dive shops before I finally found one that had long fins, and I was like, what the heck are these things?
Oh, right. And where was that? Where did you find those fins?
Oh, I must have been probably 17 years old at the time or something. I found them at a dive shop in South Florida.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the name or anything. It's probably gone under since then or, been rebranded. But I remember thinking, I'm a scuba guy, but this feels right. I really like how this could make me swim,
Yeah, right.
Because I played a lot in the pool and during the summers too as a kid. So we were always playing with fins and stuff and masks in the pool. And I kind of got raised up on it.
Did you have a pool, like a pool at your house when you grew up?
No. We had a neighborhood one that was shared by everybody. And it even had a diving board.
Oh, wow.
I remember when the insurance company came and told us the diving board was no longer a thing. I thought we were going to have an outright child mutiny throughout the neighborhood. I was mad.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. No more assisted cannonballs.
Well, I just couldn't understand, like why would anyone take away something that's so fun?
Yeah. So you had this deep pool because you have to have a deep pool for a diving board. So you started, using that depth for breath hold.
Yeah. And I remember my mom would tell me that I freaked out the lifeguard several times and, and as I right well should have. I think that if I could go back and talk to myself as a kid, I'd say, hey, maybe you have somebody watch you when you're doing these breath holds.
I was the same. Like I grew up in, we had a swimming pool. Everyone in Australia has a swimming pool.
That's nice.
I remember just, playing in that pool basically 8 hours a day. And I think Mum would come and, if she didn't hear any splashing, she'd come out and check on me and make sure I hadn't died. Yeah,
that's funny. I remember one time, I was at how some hot tubs have bubbles?
Yeah.
I found out that I could actually breathe the air out of them.
I did that once too. A hotel one. Yeah.
That's a good way to freak people out.
Yeah. It's also quite disgusting. Quite disgusting now I think about it. Yeah.
It probably was. I better not to know.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
But then when I found the springs, I was like, oh man, I started seeing free divers. I started, developing my skills as a free diver because I couldn't really afford to scuba dive anymore at that point. Mm-hmm. In my late 20s, I just didn't have the funds and I didn't have a direction yet. So I was just kind of looking for one. And free diving, the Florida Springs was like my hobby. I went in there with my best friend and we started filming and we had goals because we were both ecology minded guys, me and my best friend, Brent. Sometimes hard to reconcile the N with the T, but this is Brent with an N here. He was like, hey man, you live close to the springs. Let's go. So we started going and filming and he was a film major and he wanted to tell the stories. And I just wanted to keep people safe. So when we started a nonprofit to support our desire to get people out to the springs in order to clean up all the trash that we were seeing in our videos, we started having 30 or 40 people show up ready to snorkel and get trash. And we were like, whoa, okay, all right. So now we have to keep these people safe. So he became a cinematographer and documentary filmmaker, and I became a freediving instructor in the context of that activity. Yeah.
So, I mean, you kind of complemented each other.
Very much so. He was the friend who would ask you, "Hey man, do you want to blank?" And I remember agreeing in my mind. I was like, when he asks me to do stuff, I'm just going to say yes.
Right.
You know, because I'm the type of guy who can be a little reluctant to change.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided actively that I was going to jump on board with more of his crazy plans.
Right.
And that was a good decision, I think.
So how did you end up in the Springs in the first place? Like, how did you discover the Florida Springs?
Well, I guess my first experiences were when I was scuba diving as a kid. I think we did a checkout dive somewhere at a play. I've actually got my mom actually, she pulled me aside. She showed me some artwork from when I was a kid. Apparently I went when I was in like first grade.
Oh, right.
I was like 6 years old or something like that. And
do you remember that?
Well, I wrote you know how the school has you write down your experiences and draw pictures and stuff?
Yeah.
So I guess my first grade teacher asked me to do a recap of my trip. And in my, childhood handwriting, I'm saying that I like the crystal clear water. I like the fish with the long noses. I must have been talking about gar. And I kind of got started on it. And I said the water was very cold. So I must have gone during the summer.
Right. Yeah.
So that was when I first got introduced. And then I took a long break, maybe about 10, 15 years. And one of my friends, Jeremy, he took me to a spring near where I worked in Orlando. And I remember thinking that it looked like the turtles and the fish were just floating, like they weren't actually in water.
Yeah, because it was so clear.
Yeah, that was a new experience for me to see that level of clarity to where you can't tell if you're underwater or not. That was cool. Yeah. And I think at that point, I was pretty much sold to anybody who invited me to any spring anywhere was going to get a yes out of me.
Right. So where were you living at that point?
I was living in Gainesville. I moved from Gainesville to Tampa, then back to Gainesville again. I had several moves in rapid succession leading up to when I discovered freediving. Due to my ex-wife's career. She was trying to become a veterinarian, and she did succeed. And she's a very well established dermatological veterinarian now. But while she was getting all of her specialties and everything, I was kind of moving around along with her, going from place to place. And I wasn't really settling down anywhere. But when I went to Gainesville, it was just too close to the springs for me to not start to grow roots. When I started to become involved with other nonprofits who were actively trying to support and protect the springs, that's when I started my nonprofit. And that's really where the springs journey kind of came to light there. And I ended up not leaving. I had to stay, and I wanted to stay and develop myself as a waterman at the springs.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. For me, the springs is such a spiritual place, and I feel drawn to it just because of that clarity of that water and the way it just kind of flows through the ground like that. I feel like there is some sort of magnetism to it. Is that kind of how you feel as well?
Yeah, I feel very strongly about it. I'm not a religious person, and I wouldn't even call myself necessarily a spiritual person, but it's undeniable to me that there are things that are universally felt in that water, similar to what people feel when they're around a fire or when they know their needs are met and they're secure.
Yeah.
I think it is connected to the water being freshwater.
Yeah.
I also think it's connected to the community that develops around it. You bringing your people and your friends there. There's a lot to it. And I think it goes back thousands of years into our genetic memory.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's very much like, I mean, that water is old water. Like, I don't know how long it takes for it to come through the aquifer and stuff, but that water is, the energy within that water is so deep and so old that you can't help but kind of feel like it is solid and ancient and, stable.
You know, what's old really is the area that you are watching be active. Believe it, this is a common thing that folks that I hear about. This old water, and the area is old. These are ancient coral beds made out of limestone, calcium carbonate that's been there. It's been underwater. It's been over water. These were dry caves at one point, and several points. Every ice age made them dry.
Right.
So people used to live inside of these caves sometimes, where they'd use them as traps for large animals like mammoths and mastodons. They'd run them over the edge and drop their bodies down to the bottom of these caves, and they would have meat for their tribes that lived here 10, 20,000 years ago. There's a lot of ancient history here. But when you think about how the system works, there's areas that spit out water that's close by. And there's a lot of the springs are that way. Mm-hmm. So you could have, like, for example, a farm next to a spring. It drops all of its fertilizer into the ground. And if there's like a big spill or something like that, you could see it all, expelled from the spring in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Yeah, right. So it is flushing fairly quickly in certain places.
Well, when you hear the term first magnitude spring, you're talking about a spring that has more than 64 million gallons of water per day as an output.
Right. Yeah.
And what that means is that that's more water than goes over the edge of Niagara Falls.
Which is a crazy, visually, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I've double checked this fact like 3 or 4 times. It's around 57 million gallons of water a day going over the edge of Niagara Falls.
Right.
And then some of our springs are like up to 120 million gallons a day, or some systems are at 250. It's a crazy amount of water.
Where does all that water end up? Is that what those rivers are around that area, or is that extra water as well?
Yeah, yes. So the water takes every route imaginable. Some of it goes over the land for a small period of time. Like the Santa Fe River is, it's a 72-mile long river, but it's mostly spring fed. And there's areas where the entire river goes underground for like a few miles and then pops back up. So you've got that happening. You've got some water just like the river takes a turn and just drops right into the ground and disappears. And then we've got some water joining the Suwannee, going out to the Gulf of Mexico and joining in the ocean. There's even spring heads that don't follow the rules, and they open up in the ocean in the Gulf of Mexico. So there's a spring out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico or off the coast of Florida somewhere that's just actively gushing fresh water from, maybe 200-300 feet down in a big hole, shooting fresh water out. I try to explain it as think of the rivers and the interconnected systems underground in Florida, kind of like what you might imagine the plumbing system to a 72-story high-rise in New York City, and how it would feed every apartment in that building. And if you were to put a drop of water in that system, where would it move to?
Right.
It's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how cave divers who look for, sometimes cave divers make their money that way. They dive into the caves, they find places to drill wells, and they tell the property owners that this is a good spot to drill right here.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying that they're going in and then working out where under that person's land this cavern or this tunnel might be, and where to drill.
Yep.
It's kind of mind blowing to me. Like the whole cave diving, even just caving in general, the whole cave system thing is so intriguing and frankly scary to me. But the idea that you can navigate down there is incredible.
I recently went through my certification course to become a cave diver, an intro to cave level. So I was scuba diving around 1,000 feet into the caves and talking with a lot of cave divers and listening to their stories as I learned from them. And there are some pretty incredible spaces down there that really change your perspective. We live on the surface of, Florida, but there is so much dynamic space down there that we don't think about at all. Caves that are so big that you could fit like the Eiffel Tower in them, and they're 200 feet down underneath a Publix or something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's a whole nother world, literally.
Yeah, and then to try to say, oh yes, I'm going to predict where the water's going to move in that world is very difficult. It's a pretty fascinating thing to be part of.
And so, as someone who is firmly entrenched in, maybe not entrenched, but ensconced in the freediving world, where underwater caving is kind of a no-no. What is your reasoning for then going and getting cave certified?
Well, one of the things that I used to be a pretty poorly behaved freediver and dive in overhead environments and things like that. And it took me a while to understand why not follow the lure of the caves. And then you can't spend too long in this field without seeing accidents. And the accidents would happen with people on scuba, they'd happen with people in cave diving situations, and they'd happen with freedivers. You start to understand the nature of diving in the overhead environment more as you get more experience. And I started dialing back my bravado. But I still felt the lure of the caves. So having enough certifications under my belt from my childhood, I was only 1 or 2 certifications away from being able to explore them. So it was less of a why and more of a why not.
Right.
I don't have the desire to, at this point, I don't have the desire to go super, super far into the caves or, even necessarily leave the main line of adventure. It's a yellow line that is permanently installed in the cave and tells you where to go and how to get back. Yeah. I don't really feel the need to leave that line at this point. Right. But it sure is it feels so good to go freediving at Jenny Springs and look at the cave and know what's in there.
Yeah, like from experience, having been in there yourself now, you can sort of picture what's happening. And I think the thing with the Florida Springs, as we're kind of building this picture of them, they are a big cave diving kind of mecca. Mm-hmm. And so, every time you go to the Florida Springs, whether it's swimming or free diving or whatever, you're generally going to see divers going into the water and then disappearing somewhere.
Yeah.
Which to me, the first time I saw that was freaky. Like, I was like, where are you even going? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. And then to see, half a mile or, a few 100 feet away, all these bubbles coming out of the surface of the rock where there is no entrance, of just kind of getting this picture of people being under the ground and their bubbles are making their way out.
Just percolating right through the limestone.
Yeah, it was kind of mind blowing because you think, oh, they're probably just there, but those bubbles might have been released 30 minutes, an hour ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Long after they're gone, they'll still be bubbling their way through tiny, tiny little holes in the stone. And a lot of people, they listen to me talk about freediving or cave diving, and they're like, oh, well, I would pay you to prevent me from doing that. Or there's what the heck are you thinking, man? That's the scariest thing in the world. And I'm not going to lie. When I first got my cave certification, it was scary. I did have nightmares. And one of my classmates backed out because it was too much for him.
Yeah.
And I just have found that for me, it was okay. And I was able to, maybe because of free diving or maybe because of scuba diving or who knows, some, algebraic or algorithm thing happened that clicked in my brain, said, this feels okay for me. This isn't scary for me.
Yeah.
And I feel very at ease in the caves, knowing exactly which risks I'm taking and which ones I'm not.
Right. Calculating.
And that helps. Although I do prefer free diving over cave diving because I would prefer to depend on my body over equipment any day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is fair.
Yeah.
Well, so let's kind of talk about that. Let's talk about, overcoming fear, especially, well, not even specifically cave diving, but just underwater in general, which I think is, a large part of free diving is, because you are reliant on your own body as opposed to, external set of equipment, which can give you a crutch. You don't have to kind of think about stuff too much. This equipment's doing it for you in terms of scuba.
Yeah.
But with freediving, it is you and you alone. Can you talk a little bit about your process of how you get past those sort of barriers that your body and your mind is throwing up in front of you?
I'll put it in the context of students I have, because many people come to me, total beginners. They've never tried freediving before. Sometimes I get students who've never put a snorkel in their mouth or swam with fins in the past.
Yeah.
And I don't see any problem with that. No, they might not get their certification, but we are going to spend 2 days or however many days you want getting as far as we can. But that involves overcoming fear. So people have to first give themselves permission to try if they want it. I mean, step one is wanting to do it.
Yeah.
If you see a picture that inspires you, or you see an environment that you want to visit, or an activity that you can't do without the skill, like underwater modeling or spearfishing, then they come to try to learn. But many people don't take that first step to getting in the water because they're afraid they're going to fail. And that failure will lead to them becoming hurt or losing their life. But the very sweet and endearing thing about freediving is that when people try, they usually try 5 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet. And they're diving with me, or hopefully someone more experienced than them, who understands that any trouble they're going to have is going to be at the surface. So putting the fears to rest, we call it shallow water blackout for a reason. It's because you're going to come up first and then you're going to black out. Right. If you're going to black out. Which, here's the other fun part about learning, is that your instincts of survival are so strong that they're reacting 90% earlier than they have to keep you safe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're saying that the is overcompensating. It's kicking in earlier.
Yeah, your body's more scared than you are.
Yeah.
So helping people just prove to their body, repetition by repetition by repetition, of what they're capable of, causes a few things to happen. It causes the person to acclimate. It causes them to realize that their fear was overblown and that they don't always have to react to the fear. They can take a pause. They can talk to the fear. They can reason with their fear. They can open up a conversation or a dialogue with it and say, yes, a part of me is scared, but my last dive, I dove deeper than this, so I can probably keep going.
Yeah.
And, or maybe I'll just pull down the rope 3 more times and then I'll turn around. And instead of just putting the fear in the driver's seat and allowing the fear to make the calls. And then you start to realize that allowing fear to make the calls feels like the safe thing to do, but it's actually the most dangerous thing to do.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, panic gets you nowhere. So as you start to be able to kind of soothe this panic and put it in its place, and your abilities start to come to light in the sport, then my next favorite thing happens. People start to get a self-esteem boost. They have whispers in their mind that says, maybe I am a freediver. Maybe I really can't do this. And what does that make me? When I show them, oh, you know what, guess what? You can hold your breath longer than 30 seconds. Actually, look, you held your breath for 2 minutes and 45 seconds just now. Now they get to go on into their next week knowing that's what they can do.
Yeah, totally. No, I mean, it's like I always say this, it feels like a superpower. And as you're starting to learn that, it is like you're awakening something inside yourself.
It feels just like the early books of the Spider-Man comics when he gets bit by the spider and he's trying to figure out his superpowers. And he's like, why am I sticking to everything? And he starts to realize he's strong.
Right.
That's how it felt for me. And that's what I relive over and over again with my students in the teaching and the learning. And that's one of the places that the addiction to freediving can form.
Yeah, because you're pushing your body to do things that you don't think you can do.
Yeah, like you thought it was totally impossible. Like I remember when I first heard of somebody holding their breath over 5 minutes, and I was like, yeah, like I'm never going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then it happened.
So what is your breath hold?
Well, I stopped training it after about 5.5 minutes, as far as pushing it for a duration. Mostly because I really only need like a 2.5 minute breath hold in order to hit my maximum depth right now. So it was a calculated decision, and I also maybe buckled a little bit to the pressure of my mom and dad, who are both doctors and physicians, telling me about, repetitive breath holds like that potentially being something that could slow down cognition. It hasn't been measured, but sometimes you just don't want to worry your mom and dad. You'd rather not argue with them.
Yeah.
So I just kind of put extending my breath hold more and more. I put that to rest, and I focused on enjoyment. And I would say my enjoyable dives now are like 2.5 to 3 minutes long.
Right.
Be when I'm really feeling myself.
And I think that's a really good point as well. Like it depends on what you're doing and what your goal is for this whole situation. But I feel like you only need a breath hold for as long as the thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
Like for me, my breath hold is like, I'm not particularly interested in going like to depth. I just want to stay under longer. I just want to be able to enjoy it for longer. And, especially with my career, it's like, I want to be able to, shoot longer takes, or be able to, get comfortable, get into a position and be able to do my job underwater without feeling the pressure of the breath hold. So it really doesn't need to be that long for me.
No, it doesn't. That's actually one of the things that's blown me away the most, because I wasn't obviously always into helping models become better models and underwater photographers being better at their job. That wasn't always my motivation. Now it's kind of come into my life over the past 2 years as like a really fun addition to what I do. But one of the things I've noticed watching you do your job is that you can create an incredible picture with someone who is only under the water for 10 or 15 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like whoa, wow. I never realized it happened that fast.
Yeah, it is that too. And it is, for me, it is not so much getting someone to stay under for longer. It's having someone be more efficient with how they spend that time underwater. And a lot of that is, you can thrash around for 2.5 minutes trying to get into a position and trying to get comfortable and trying to get relaxed. But that's probably 2.5 minutes of wasted time. Whereas you can spend 15 seconds of being completely at peace, and that's going to be more valuable in that photo scenario, because it is just 15 seconds of pure just relaxation and just giving in to everything.
On-demand relaxation. Yeah, on-demand relaxation and total comfort, resting in the water.
Yeah, exactly.
Huge. So like one of the things that I tell my beginner students a lot, and I tell this to models as well, is if you're moving your legs in order to stay afloat, then you will never be less tired. You will always be more.
Yeah.
The quotient. The working quotient causes you to load more and more and more exertion with those big old quad muscles, biggest muscles that you've got. They're very expensive. So, they're expensive to run. They take a lot of energy.
Yeah, exactly.
So I like to give people a float or something when practicing freediving. And I say, my phrase is turn off your legs.
Yeah.
They're not
and I think that's what I would love to hear your sort of perspective on, because, when I'm teaching models, it is all that sort of thing of like, like while you're at the surface breathing up, like, why are you treading water? Just hold on to this float, hold on to the edge of the pool, like hold on to, the side of the boat, whatever it is, and just stop moving, like it is, you're trying to get yourself to a point of efficiency and very little energy expenditure if you don't need to. So from your point of view of training, like freediving and that,
absolutely. Because it's mostly mental. 90% of the movement that new swimmers do is extra. A lot of folks don't understand when they're becoming accustomed to the water. They have a lot of fears. I don't want my nose to get wet. I don't want my ears to get wet. I don't want my eyes to get wet. And they'll do anything to keep their head above the surface of the water. But they don't realize that, and they don't have their floating positions figured out. A lot of folks who are coming into the water brand new, they don't realize that you can actually control how much you're floating with your breath.
Yeah.
And if you have a full pair of lungs, that, you know, there's really not a lot of work you have to do in order to keep your head above the water. But these are all the little bridges that we have to cross in order to get ourselves to a point where we're only doing what's necessary to rest and nothing more.
Yeah.
Understanding momentum, buoyancy, energy conservation, and the physics of buoyancy are all things that will eventually come naturally to folks. It just takes experience and time, and if you're lucky enough to be able to hire a coach, then you can speed through it a little faster. Yeah,
I mean, so much of it is learning how to walk again, basically. Like you're in a different environment. You're in this, you know, viscous fluid that is, and it's like being in space. You know, when you're an astronaut in zero gravity, you have to relearn how to move your body and how, you know, if I do this with my legs, that's going to happen to my body and I'm going to go that direction.
Yes.
It is all that cause and effect that you need to relearn.
It's not going to come instinctually at first, that's for sure.
And that is something that I love about being underwater, is that kind of cause and effect, like, you know, being able to gently change your entire body position with just a flutter of a hand or a kick of a foot.
Absolutely. I think that is one of the reasons I love freediving the most, and why it doesn't get old for me, is because I can take my fins off and go barefoot with my weight belt and my wetsuit on, and I can, with my hands, I can pull down the rock walls of a spring. And when I hit neutrality and my buoyancy starts to taper out, any movement that I do will be pronounced. I'll start to glide no matter what I do.
Yeah.
Because I'm not rising to the surface anymore. And if I'm sinking, that's even better, because then I can just move my arms and legs like the flaps on a plane and I can start to fly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I can drop down to the bottom of a 60-foot spring and then bend my legs underneath me and then just launch myself up, and I'm flying. I'll go 20, 30 feet before I have to move my arms.
Again, it's bringing you back to that superhero kind of thing of now you're Superman.
It is very comic booky, for sure. I've definitely done some superhero poses while sinking or floating up in the middle of the water column. It's so much fun.
Oh, yeah. And so you're kind of career-wise, I guess, as a freedive instructor, kind of started instructing freedivers. But are you finding more and more lately you're getting, you know, people who want to model and people who are photographers or, you know, camera operators who want to learn this technique as well?
Well, you know, I think everyone's a little egocentric when they first start their career. And I was thinking everyone's going to want what I want. And what I wanted was to be a freediver and to, you know, swim down as far as I could and explore all the cool things that the springs have to offer. And then I started running into mermaids. And they don't care really. I mean, not all of them. Then none of them are the same. You can't categorize them all in one broad stroke. But many mermaids only really spend their time in the first 10, 15 feet of the springs.
Yeah.
And they're taking awesome pictures and such, and they wanted to learn from me too. And I was a little shocked and surprised by that at first before I kind of got the lay of the land. Now I'm starting to realize that the tradition of film in Florida Springs goes all the way back to post-World War II, with Weeki Wachee and Silver Springs being the site of some of Paramount Pictures and Warner Brothers' big underwater hits. For many, 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 many decades, these springs their water has been the thing that allows you to communicate with people all over the world, because the fresh water doesn't damage your gear as much. The springs are accessible. You can drive right up to them. So it's almost like, what better place to shoot underwater photography? And I'm just now joining the conversation late.
Right. I mean, those things are like just the big swimming pools, big natural swimming pools. It is so easy to get in and out of. And then the underwater landscape there, especially for photographers, is so kind of addictive.
Yeah, it's such and like all the freedom of movement that we're talking about, it translates to on screen, where, you know, I think we've all watched somebody move underwater where we just go, dang, that guy looks like he was born in the water. Or that girl looks like she was born there. And that anybody can find that within themselves if they allow themselves to build the experience so that they can learn which movements are necessary and which ones are not. And how to play with buoyancy and how to make it work with you instead of working against it.
And so how do you find people coming into this with, not necessarily wanting to free dive, but wanting to get better at photography or modeling, which generally is fairly, shallow. There's, the sort of top 10, 15, 20 feet. What are you finding with them in terms of what are they wanting to learn and focus on, and what are they kind of what are the difficulties they have?
Well, most people come to me right away because they want to hold their breath longer. They want to stay down longer. And instead of working on their breath hold, I end up working on their body movement because it's inefficient.
Right. Yeah.
And we work at the surface quite a bit. Another thing that I work with them a lot on that they wouldn't expect, I imagine, is I work with them to help them understand the risks of what they're doing and how to intervene when you watch someone else going through one of the hypoxic events that can happen with holding your breath for a long time underwater, especially if you're in a big flowy dress or something like that. I train people, listen, if you're going to do this from day one, you need to know what to do if somebody blacks out.
Yeah.
And maybe even how to prevent a blackout within yourself as well.
Yeah. So what are the signs there? What are people looking for within themselves and in someone else that they're diving with?
Well, step one, I can really easily eliminate one of those categories. So if you are looking within yourself for signs of a blackout, you won't find them.
Right.
You might have a bad dive and maybe go through a situation of panic or something like that, but it's not guaranteed. You might have a longer dive, but that's also not guaranteed. Really, blackouts are very capricious. They are difficult to predict. They're based on your stress level, what you ate. They're based on your exertion, how much sleep you got, how much water did you drink, and how much are you pushing your breath hold. So unfortunately, the very same parts of your brain that are like the frontal cortex is responsible for that ego and that self-monitoring, and the memory-making centers also are the first things to go.
Right.
So by the time you should be monitoring yourself, that part of your brain's already asleep.
Right. So you're not going to notice the things that you can't notice because those senses are turned off.
Yeah, that part of your brain is gone. Sometimes people can everyone's different. So some people are more aware than others, but it's not anything worth banking on. And when you come to the surface, a lot of folks, when they come to, they'll actually argue that they blacked out at all.
Right. Yeah.
So self-monitoring is really not a part of our algorithm. We are all about the buddy system. So how do you notice it in somebody else becomes very important. When I'm watching a swimmer come up from a free dive who looks very controlled in their ascent, usually they're not working hard because if they're getting close to the surface, that means they should be floating. We make sure that we float at the surface just in case we do black out and exhale, and then we won't sink. Yeah. So hopefully your diver that you're watching is someone who's, barely kicking, barely moving, just floating up. And then they break the surface. And then they give you a nice eye contact and hand signal, and they tell you they're okay. And things are okay. You watch them for a little while, maybe 15, 30 seconds, make sure that they're good, move on with your life.
Right.
That's the good diver. Now, the diver who's having a problem, he's going to lose control of his technique that he's built. He or she is going to do things like instinctual swimming, which for people, that's the doggy paddle. So you might see the arms starting to kind of pinwheel around a little bit. You might see the legs bend more at the knee. You might see the knee come up to the waist. You might see them slow down. But the most universal sign that you'll see is an exhale underwater, or an exhale after they breathe for the first time at the surface. And they just kind of sigh and they lose muscle tension. Right. So at that point, they have gone through a fainting spell. That's it. just like a wedding or like a concert, if someone goes down at a concert or a wedding, you grab them and you try to help them recover. And in the water, the most important part of that is making sure that their nose and their mouth are dry.
Right.
Because they're going to come back.
Because the blackout itself isn't the dangerous part. It's not being able to breathe once they've blacked out.
Yes, the best way to think of the blackout is like the body is just going ahead and just kind of elbowing you out of the way and taking the wheel and saying, look, if you're going to keep staying underwater, we're taking over now.
Right. Yeah.
And we're going to stop you from making all these decisions you're making.
Right. So, it's like the override, like they've hit the kill switch.
Right. So once the kill switch is hit, the reboot is coming. So the only thing you really need to do is make sure that the nose and mouth are clear and they stay dry. But we have a series of other things that we do. We take off the mask, we blow on the eyes, we tap on their face, we say breathe, we say their name. And typically people wake up within 30 seconds. That covers around 99% of cases.
Right.
So it's a pretty dependable strat.
So while we're actually talking about this, so there's some big differences between scuba and free dive, in general, in terms of the amount of gear you have, your ability to move through the water gracefully and efficiently. They both change depending on which one you're doing. In terms of the safety, though, I think it'd be really great to kind of educate people as to, because I think there is a bit of a stigma around free diving that it's dangerous.
Yeah. Would you like me to compare the two?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So let's say you're doing a free dive. You got a beginner doing a free dive and you got a beginner doing a scuba. They're both at 30 feet down. Both of them panic and bolt towards the surface. The scuba diver or the free diver, which one do you think is in more danger?
The scuba diver.
Yes. Why do you think the scuba diver is more danger?
The gases in the body.
Yeah. As you breathe that compressed air over and over again, it changes the chemical composition of your blood, which can cause your blood to, if you've been down long enough or deep enough, it can cause your blood to bubble on your ascent, the bends. Or if the poor guy or girl, if they forget to breathe out while they're ascending, if they're truly panicked, they might hold their breath. And if they do, their lungs could overexpand because they've taken in new air at depth. That air is going to expand if they go up. So if your lungs are 100% full with your last breath and you go 6 feet up, you could get a pulmonary embolism.
Right.
If the freediver goes up, well, he's carrying the same lung full of air that he left the surface with. So there's no way to overexpand it without adding more air to his lungs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. So you're taking down the same volume and bringing it back up. Even though it changes under pressure, it's not going to change in volume at the surface.
And exactly. The volume's going to be exactly the same. You're going to leave with 100, you're going to shrink down, then you're going to expand back up. So kind of a fun fact I'll throw in here is that when you do a 100-foot deep dive as a freediver, your lungs become the size of a tennis ball.
Which is nuts. The fact that our totally body crazy. Allows that to happen, that there's totally that much nuts. Stretch inside us. Yeah.
It's almost like it's supposed to happen.
Right. Yeah.
So evolution. We are, and our body can naturally deal with those changes. But another thing we do is we only take one breath down. So our chemical composition of our blood is more reluctant to change because we don't spend that much time at depth. The pressure that's on us is only on one breathful instead of multiple breathfuls. So we don't get as much nitrogen input into our blood system as a diver does, scuba diver does.
Right. Yeah. Is there is that risk entirely negated in freediving, or is that process just extremely slow in terms of that gas being absorbed into the bloodstream? I'd say
for 90% of freedivers, I would say that the risk is completely negated because most people don't go deeper than like 30, 40 feet especially if they don't have a certification. There's a small fragment of freedivers who do get a certification or training, and then they start to go deeper. And there's a small fraction of that fraction that becomes competitive freedivers. And these guys are going 80, 90, 100, 110 meters down. You're talking 300, 400 foot dives.
Right.
These guys are subjecting their bodies to enough pressure that they can actually put themselves at risk of the same thing that the scuba divers can. They can't get enough nitrogen pushed into their blood that it'll bubble on the way to the surface. So they have to take long breaks in between dives to breathe out that nitrogen and make sure it doesn't build up in one session.
Oh, right. So even though they've done sort of one dive that was, like maybe sort of 4 or 5 minutes down that deep and back up again, then they still sort of, do a surface interval to let those gases, expel.
Right. Instead of taking like a 2 to 4 minute break at the surface, they might take a 20-minute break, 30-minute break at the surface.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I would say, if you're going to compare the danger between the two, I would say the main thing that I love about freediving when it comes to being safer is that our primary risk is blackout. That blackout's going to happen at the surface right in front of your buddy. Your buddy just has to keep your airway secure. It's a pretty simple sport. Whereas with scuba, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And you can become a great scuba diver and have almost zero athletic ability of how to move or how to control your body under the water. I would maybe not a great scuba diver. You can become a scuba diver with hardly knowing how to swim.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it allows people to put themselves into situations where panic or danger is a much more lethal gun.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's one thing with, like you say, like one thing with freediving is it is almost self-limiting. Like you can only go as far as you are physically and mentally capable of going. Whereas scuba allows you to go places that you probably have no business being. Yeah.
It's, I consider it like flying a plane or driving a helicopter, there's a lot of technical glitches available to you.
Yeah.
But not to say I like, I don't like either of them better than the other because I don't see the point in comparing them as far as why would you choose one? You could easily just do both. Yeah. But I do think I may be a little biased, but I do try to step back and look at the actual risks. And I can't help but say, I think scuba is more dangerous.
Right. Yeah, I think so. So within my career, I do both. I do freediving and scuba, and especially when we're talking about photography or filming, they both for me have a place. If I'm needing to do something deeper than 20 feet and I need to be there for a certain amount of time, then scuba is the one I'm going to choose because it gives me much more control. Mm-hmm. Whereas anything shallower than that, where I'm not needing to stay at a certain depth, diving gives me much more ease and a much more flexibility to be able to do my job without being constrained by the gear and the equipment, etc.
You're also free to communicate more with your clients.
Yeah, exactly. Having that constant up and down coming back to the surface means we can talk, we can direct, we can sort of communicate. Whereas once you're on scuba and you're at depth, your model, your talent might be on scuba as well, because now you're relegated to hand signals or a slate, and it is really limiting the amount of communication you can have.
Yeah, for the most part, you got to stick with plan A.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it does not allow for improvisation, which is a lot of what I do is improvisation because I'm working with someone who might not be able to do what I'm asking them to do. So we have to pivot, we have to change.
Right. You might have a client say something like, I'm not really connecting with this. I'm thinking more of something like this.
Yeah. Or even them just not being able to physically do it. Like they're like, I can't get to that, or this dress is too big, or this, whatever we're doing, they're not physically able to do.
Yeah. Well, I'm also, I'm into fossil hunting and into diving shipwrecks. And that's when I would choose scuba for like a recreational enjoyment perspective is if I really want to sit on it for a while, then scuba's going to be it.
Yeah, but exactly.
Other than that, though, just the fact that I can free dive 3 to 4 hours in a day, I can go to 3 or 4 different sites and hardly have to lug anything around. I just found that the free diving is more spontaneous and, you can just kind of leave your stuff in the back of the car or in the boat or something and just use it when you need it.
Yeah, exactly. And so with you, like with the business that you have there in Florida, what are you kind of mainly seeing? Like what is your clientele kind of like? Is it people who already know how to free dive and they're wanting you to take them around and show them the springs, or is it is it more the education side of things of training new or, upskilling existing freedivers?
Well, one of the reasons that I've kept my name broad, Aquatrek Expeditions, rather than Aquatrek Freediving Coaching or something like that, is because, first of all, I'm head over heels in love with the swamps in Florida, and I can't imagine diving them and not teaching people about them. So it was easy for me to open up paddleboarding tours and try to give people experiences that didn't necessarily involve freediving. And then, of course, there's the people who trust me. I've been working as a freediving coach in this area for 9 years now. So a lot of people come to me because they know I can make them a better freediver. But my favorite clients are the ones who come to me for a little snorkeling tour or for a little paddleboarding tour. And then they start to get a little clue of what's underneath the surface, what's behind the veil.
Yeah.
And then I get to take and this especially is touching to me with families, because I really love finding a family that doesn't yet have the seed of the aquatic world in it. Mm-hmm. And then capturing their imagination with a light touch of what we do here. And then they start to sign up for like monthly training, and they're seeing me twice a month, and I'm training a father and son, or a mother and their son and daughter. And then we start to watch this seed grow within the family to the point where they can't imagine their life without the water anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So that involves a lot of hard skills like freediving, snorkeling, finning, paddling, all that. But that's why I called my company Aquatrek, because that's the walk of water that I want to lead people down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you are describing yourself as some kind of drug dealer, honestly.
Or like maybe the greatest showman.
Yeah.
I just feel like I've stumbled into something that we should all be paying more attention to, which is like, how much time do we spend in or around the water? It's not enough.
No, exactly.
People need more of it. People love it. They don't even know why they love it. Mm-hmm. But if I can just help people get more in touch and more proud of themselves and feeling more capable, and then wanting to teach their kids about it. And, that's how I ended up doing any of this in the first place. I never even met my great uncle, but he was a Navy guy, and he influenced my father and his brother to become water people.
Yeah.
And that was passed down to me.
Yeah.
I get to, and that's why I love my job, and it makes me get goosebumps, because I get to give someone other family that I don't even know. I get to throw that dart into their dartboard.
Oh, no, exactly. I mean, that's kind of how I feel with my photography side of stuff as well, is just opening up or guiding people into something that they're like, well, I never even knew this existed. And now I'm just like, something I want in my life.
And it doesn't have much to do with you or me, but it's great. We get to just be that plug. It's fun, man. It's really fun.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me into, the environmental impact and the ecology of the Florida springs themselves. I mean, we love diving in them, we love swimming in them, but they're so much greater than just that. And you've done a lot of work in terms of, trying to protect that natural resource. Can you sort of talk us through what is happening down there in terms of the threat to that ecology?
Yeah, I had a lot of like really important influences on me, as I was diving the springs. And, I would say that learning from these people, like the Florida Springs Institute and everybody who worked there, kind of finding out about these situations that we're facing in the springs, really shaped me as a conservationist in this area. Mm-hmm. And then also working with artists too, but I'll stay on topic here. So what I learned was that the conservation issues with the springs have a lot to do with the flow of this water and what it's influenced by. We have over 1 trillion gallons of water in the Floridan aquifer. It's one of the most productive aquifers in the world. You're talking 1,100 springs in the state. Yeah. It should be a national or a worldwide heritage site or something like that. It just got developed first. So our responsibility to this water has a lot to do with how much we're pumping out of the ground. And I don't mean for drinking water. Well, I don't mean for bottled water. I mean for drinking water. And I mean for watering crops and keeping huge industries running. Like we're talking about industrial and residential pull on this water supply.
Yeah.
90% of our drinking water comes from the aquifer. So you can see flow reductions at the springs. There are springs that have dried up. There are springs that are caves now, like Worthington Springs and White Springs. They've stopped flowing.
So they're just dry caves?
Yeah, either the water that's coming out of them is mostly river water or lake water, or it's no longer like straight up aquifer water. The discharge has been reduced because a lot of springs, they're actually an amalgamation of different water sources. You're just taking out the groundwater part.
Right.
But anyway, there goes all the crystal clear blue water. So you may have like a swimming pool that's built up around the spring and then it just blacks out.
Oh, right.
And then now you can't use that pool anymore because it's scary and people don't want to swim in it.
Right.
And that reduction in flow also means that any pollutants that are in the aquifer are more concentrated.
Right.
There's just less water to spread it out in. So that means impacts from fertilizers and septic tanks, nitrates pollution and things like that are causing the water to go from something that was kind of a blank slate where the algae really couldn't grow too much with this aquifer water because it really didn't have much in it. But now it's got fertilizer in it. So the algae's like, oh yeah, this is great. You know, like let's set up camp in this spring head. Now there's less water coming out to blow the algae around. So it settles onto the plants and it starts to choke them out for sunlight and nutrients.
And that algae is basically just gorging itself on the nutrients in the fertilizer.
Yeah, and it's got more sunlight because the water levels coming out of the spring are lower in a lot of cases.
Oh, wow.
So now it's getting, a lot of sun and a lot of food. So it takes over. Yes, and then it ends up coating all the plants and choking them out. So that means you're losing the primary producer of that ecosystem. And those plants, they're the ones who turn the sun into food. Mm-hmm. And the food feeds the ecosystem. So that means everything above the plant level on the pyramid of ecology starts to suffer.
So how do you stop that? How do you turn that back?
It's a tall order, but it's going to have to do with proper management of our water resources. Right now, the vast majority of permits for further drilling and further well drilling and pulling of water out of the aquifer, these water draw permits. Right now, the approval of those permits is over 98% in the 5 different water management districts in Florida. Mm-hmm. So essentially, we're giving away all the water. And that's got to stop. You could start at that government level there. And the people who are approving all these permits, they are put into place by the governor, and they are not elected positions. So a lot of times it's shocking but true to find out that the permits are being granted by the very people who will benefit from them.
Right. Like property developers and stuff.
Exactly. Real estate developers. We're seeing a relative scarcity of water scientists, ecologists, and experts in the field of conservation on those boards of that's the water management district, the 5 water management districts of the state that are making those decisions. So that's really what it comes down to. But if you really want to make an impact, one of the best things you can do is you can just take land out of the hands of developers and buy it.
Right.
So there are nonprofits like Conservation Florida and Alachua Conservation Trust that are doing that. And they're trying to buy as much land as they can and prevent it from being developed.
Right.
So I would say that that's probably one of my favorite strategies is, if you can't count on them to develop it right, just buy it.
Right. Yeah. Take it out of circulation. Yeah.
That's right. Farm it like Bitcoin or something like that.
Right.
And there's a great project they're doing right now where they're buying all the land in a strip that goes from Key West all the way up to the Florida-Georgia line. That way wildlife can move up and down
wow.
groove. It's called the
Yeah.
Florida Wildlife Corridor. It's a very, very cool project that's luckily has gotten a lot of funding and has taken off nicely.
You know, I think that sort of thing, like the corridor kind of concept, because it happens a lot here in LA because we have these massive freeways. And we actually have ecologies and communities of wildlife that do not cross those freeways. And so there are, small pockets of animals who have never met the animals across the freeway. And so, it kind of changes the breeding. It changes how they kind of evolve. And, and that's definitely why these corridors are needed, is to be able to give them access to other, like a deeper gene pool as well, just to kind of keep these species actually alive.
Yeah, we're seeing that with the Florida panther. There's a great documentary called The Path of the Panther that is worth checking out, which talks a lot about this corridor and how these animals move. It's very, very important. But I guess to break it all down, I'm not the type of conservationist who's going to focus on things like, hey, take a 2-minute shower.
Right.
I'm more the type of conservationist who's going to say, okay, we have huge players playing huge games in our state. How do we play with them? Mm-hmm. And if I'm a conservationist trying to make, let's say that I'm like fairly rich, maybe I've got a couple $1 million in the bank or something like that. Yeah. If I want to make a difference with that money, I want to know who to donate it to. And we need power players. We need big players in this game. And if you're not a big player, then reaching out and finding out who is, and helping them play the game too.
Yeah.
Because money talks, and that's what's going to make a difference in these situations. If it's the cold truth of doing this for a long time, is you realize that, it is important that we do what we can, and we should on a personal level, do what we can to conserve water and to check out your own septic tank and make sure that it's, up to code and stuff. But, I think the reality of the situation is that we have these big industries that just cannot be ignored. You can't just focus on your own home anymore.
No, exactly. And it is good to do things at the grassroots level, but I think a lot of these changes that need to happen, in every industry, needs more leverage, and it needs bigger players to be able to make a bigger hit.
Yeah, we can't let big money dominate the conversation of conservation.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's really important to do things like make sure that if there's a possibility to get more of those positions, like the ones on the Water Management District and the ones at the Fish and Wildlife Commission, if we can figure out a way to get those seats to be voted in rather than appointed, then we could maybe have more of a voice as the common folk, if you will, to try to influence who's making decisions, who's doing what with our resources, the land and the water.
Yeah.
We should be able, we really should have a strong voice as community members as to what's happening with that.
Oh, no, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dave, on that extremely uplifting ending, thank you so much for your time. Yeah, right. Hey, thanks so much for kind of just sharing everything, talking us through how you ended up in the springs and how much you love it, and how you share that with other people. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, I am extremely lucky to be in the position that I'm in. I'm grateful for it all the time. And it was a pleasure to also help you in your training.
Oh, yeah. I mean, dude, you've been instrumental in getting me through some hurdles. And I think that's the biggest thing, is finding someone who can and empathize with what you're going through. Because a lot of this stuff, especially with freediving, it is, it's esoteric. It's not tangible, and it's hard for someone to understand someone else's fears. Mm-hmm. But I think having someone who's a guide and a teacher who's patient and empathetic and willing to kind of try and, undo that knot of whatever trauma you've got to work through, I think is really special and really unique.
Oh, thank you, man. That means a lot. And I can't wait to get back in the water with you again.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, Dave.
Take care.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And as always, if you like the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share. If you'd like to support with the production of these episodes, you can purchase our very cool merchandise at theunderwaterpodcast.com. We've got branded coffee mugs, stickers, beer cozies, and posters featuring our amazing illustration and logo by Joe Hodino. If you'd like to connect with us or learn more about our guests, you can reach us at theunderwaterpodcast.com or on Instagram. We also have a Facebook group where you can discuss the episodes and even get your questions answered by our guests. There's a link to it in the show notes. Also, don't forget about Waterproof magazine, showcasing the best in underwater art. Read it online or purchase a print edition at waterproofmag.org. You can learn more about my underwater photography workshops and mentoring at brettstanley.com or Brett S Photo on Instagram. The Underwater Podcast is presented and produced by me, Brett Stanley, and our music is Neo by Oh Boy. Keep creating, everyone. I'll see you in the water.